Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday. Today's guests, including Farhan, standing by, brought to you by Optic Foliar, the only lights-on spray with no damage and no burning to your plant leaves. Plant efficiency, nutrition, and results all combined into a single solution for all stages of growth and safe to use on flowers. Spray it, see it, believe it. Believe it.
Belief.
Yeah.
Leaf.
Get it?
I get it.
That's Optic Foliar. Visit this made in BC company online at opticfoliar.ca. We're getting a lot of people ripping into me for not liking abbreviations.
Well, exactly. GM Jim Rutherford. It's common sense.
Well, no, a GM, but AGM, it's too much for me. I need everything printed out in full.
That's nice.
Farhan Lalji joins us now from TSN, which stands for
the Toronto Sports Network.
Well, the Sports Network.
Toronto
or
Sports,
Sports
Network. It's all Toronto 24/7.
Farhan, how are you, sir?
Good. If I'm doing these things for free, you could at least be nice to my company, Rick.
Oh, yeah. You're not doing it for free, so he's up there, pal. Nobody does anything in life for free.
Well, there is that.
Bruce Arians, you're a coach, Farhan. You're a football coach, as a matter of fact. He gets fined $50,000 for slapping the helmet of one of his players during a tense moment last week. Do you agree with that punishment?
That's a tough question. I've certainly seen a lot more in the way of egregious things. At University of Washington, their head coach,
yes.
Jimmy Lake, one of the reasons he lost his job was because of a physical altercation with a player. And ultimately that was a suspension. It was his job performance that led to him losing the job. But that stuff's not good. I mean, it's a different age. It's a different era. I don't think what Bruce Arians did was awful, over the top. I'm not sure the player even found it that offensive, but just the optics of it, the NFL had to do something. I mean, by NFL standards, a $50,000 fine is very much a slap on the wrist, if that. So, they had to do something. It wasn't an over-the-top punishment, but I guess something to show they've made a bit of a reaction. But yeah, it's tough. It's not like the old days.
You get caught up in the moment. Wouldn't a shove have been better, or is it just it was so emotional that Bruce Arians just wasn't thinking?
Yeah, look, I think so. Sure, a shove would have been better. Just grabbing the jersey might have been better.
Yeah.
A slap on the butt might have been better. I don't know. I mean, there's a myriad of things that you do to get somebody's attention. And, probably something he didn't need to do in that moment. But Arians is old school. Arians got hot. And look, I'm not defending the action. I'm just saying that probably a lot worse has happened in Bruce Arians' career.
Sunday is unbelievable in the divisional playoffs. Rams at Buck. Not to take anything away from what's happening Saturday, but looking ahead, Sunday looks just tremendous. Rams at Buccaneers, Bills at Chiefs. If you had to pick one of those games to watch, which one would it be?
Well, the winner of the Bills and Chiefs game is going to win the Super Bowl. I fully believe that. These two teams are playing incredibly well. Both are hot right now. And, first time ever, the two quarterbacks are facing each other coming off of 5 touchdown pass performances the previous week. Their defenses are playing at a high level. You look at Kansas City, and their first 6 weeks of the season, they had the worst defense in the league. And since week 6, they've had the best defense in the league, right? So both teams are playing at a really, really high level. And this is a game you're going to see a lot. 4th time in 2 years these two teams are meeting. This is going to be Brady Manning all over again, from previous decades, right? Mm-hmm. Where you see these guys play in a big primetime game every year. You see them play in a playoff game every year. It'll feel like a divisional rivalry, but these are the two best young quarterbacks in the game, and it's going to be a treat to watch them play on Sunday.
Farhan, let's move over to the Canucks. The trip, 2 big wins at the end. Your thoughts on the road trip?
Yeah, look, I think it was a big win for them to get those 2 wins at the end. And even Thatcher Demko talked about it, that earlier you lose 3, you probably see the 4th and the 5th, and, it just continues. And, it was a group that was previously labeled fragile. Just the fact that they could show a little bit of resiliency and come back, and it's not like they played an easy opponent in Game 4 against Washington and then follow that up with Nashville. And it wasn't just that they won, it was the way they won, right? I mean, they controlled play. You had Elias Pettersson and his young line mates when he had to move back to center with Hoglander and Podkolzin, dominating possession. what we saw from Pettersson, right, just in terms of driving play and not just the goals, but getting penalty calls and just creating chances and generating and doing the things we've seen previously. For them to come out of that trip with that schedule and level of competition with 4 points at the end, I think it's impressive.
Okay, the trade deadline, you know the drill because you've worked many trade deadlines. Yeah. It's around the corner. This is Vancouver. It's starting, the rumors. Miller, Mott, Luke Schen's name's out there. What are you doing if you're the Canucks? Are you moving a guy like Miller, or are you going to keep him?
I would keep him, and I've seen the other reports on other shows that suggest that the Canucks are getting a lot of calls, and at some point, if they get the deal they want, they'll move him. I think you kind of – look, I don't want the Canucks to be buyers at this stage. I think this would be misguided in terms of trying to make a blockbuster buy. You know, if they continue this right up until the deadline, then at that point you might want to tinker around the edges of the roster, maybe try to bring in – a fourth-line right-handed center to help you with penalty killing or a depth defenseman or what have you. Money in, money out kind of transactions, right? I think you could potentially do that. To me, I would try to give this group every opportunity they can to run with what they're doing right now. And if you're going to make a JT Miller trade, he still has value in the offseason with another year under his contract. So, I'd like to see them kind of have the best of both worlds in this scenario. Yes, you could sell high on him now. Wouldn't be the worst thing to do. Ultimately, show me what the offer is, right? Before we know for sure. But I think in a perfect world, you try to get as much as you can out of this group without doing something stupid and adding big that's going to further set you back in terms of roster flexibility down the road. But then in the offseason, when he still has value, revisit that deal.
Farhan, we mentioned earlier that you are a football coach. You're also a reporter. Can you relate to the Draisaitl versus Matheson confrontation from earlier this week up in Edmonton?
Yeah, I didn't like it, and I think there's some history there, right? I mean, obviously, Jim Matheson's not afraid to be critical, and he's a highly respected journalist, but, I'm sure that wasn't the first moment that got to that point, or it wouldn't have led Draisaitl to say, everything. And I think that was wrong for him to say. So while, I posted that I thought the first question was fair, and I think it was, and Draisaitl could have answered with a little more depth and chose not to. And then when he decided to follow that up with, everything. And then Matty took the bait, right? And just said, okay, I've had enough of you. I'm not going to let you, disrespect me. I'm going to say something back. And I think it was bad on both sides at that point. But yeah, I mean, look, a lot of this is the byproduct of the media environment that we're in, right? Like, because in another environment, you could actually talk to that guy. I've had instances with players in different sports where, you have a lot of these interviews and then all of a sudden they don't like your questions. Because for me, generally, I take pride in asking hard questions when we're in the room and can have that setting. And I think people expect that from me from time to time. And sometimes athletes don't like that. It'd be great if you could follow that up with a side conversation and have it out, right? And just say, okay, look, here's where we're at. And it would improve the dynamic. But when you get into these cold, impersonal environments on Zoom, and I know that one was in person, but it's still a press conference setting, I think it just lends itself to this type of reaction. So wasn't good on either side. Didn't like seeing it, but not the first time a reporter and an athlete are going to go at it.
Do you have any confrontations or run-ins with athletes or coaches you want to tell us about?
Oh,
sure. Yeah, you know what? Like, I had a conversation once with Manny Arsenault. I went on the radio at one point during the Jeff Tedford era and suggested the Lions should have traded him, right? Because of certain things that were being shown in the field, but also certain comments the coaches were making to kind of give credence to what my opinion was at the time. He didn't like it, and we had a good relationship to that point. Well, you know what? At a practice one day, he came over and we talked and we had it out, right? And then, the next time I went on air, I had different context for what I had to say. But, the point is that situation, it allowed us to just be adults and talk about it at one point. And, I said something publicly, and then if I was going to change what I had to say, I needed to do that publicly. But it was just important that we had a chance to have a personal conversation and fix it. At one point, I had a disagreement with Marcus Naslund on my commentary about another player. And Marcus and I were able to talk about that off air and get on the same page. So those things happen, right?
Farhan, fabulous reporter, football coach, jack of all trades. Farhan Lalji, thanks so much, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys.